we are now recording.
All right. Madam Clerk, do you have some items for us?
I do, I have
About
some
that.
previous minutes that I would like to request approval on. I sent them to all of y'all previously. I would like,
From the
approval for
90s.
minutes. From minutes from January 11th, 2021, March 1st, 2021, May 24th, 2021, and November 29th, 2021.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Thank you.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Pretty quick.
A lot quicker than it took to do those minutes.
I was kinda hoping someone would find a few things to talk about.
To make it interesting?
Yeah.
Actually, two matters. One is a housekeeping, and I'll do it very quickly before we get started with the other. If you guys remember, some time ago, we received an application from a gentleman named Benito Aguilera. And Benito wanted to do a welding and repair shop on Northwest Avenue, and we didn't get a favorable enough response to resolve it. And I think I finally got a hold of Mr. Aguilera and spoke to him, and he has asked to voluntarily withdraw his application. The difference between withdrawing it and y'all turning it down, or being turned down by council, is he can reapply at some point, but if it's turned down, there is a statutory period before he can reapply. So I'd like the motion to, or the minutes to reflect, voluntarily Mr. Aguilera has withdrawn his application to that matter until he revives it, or for whatever reason it comes back up, is not tabled, is just dead for right now, okay? And he would have to reapply. Okay.
All right.
Item number 2, NEC Investments has approached the town of Blackstone and would like to build a series of what we call, by ordinance, mini warehouses. And I think that's also self-serve storage units, and what you would obviously think of when you see over on the intersection of Broad Street and High Street, a mini storage building. All right. I have 2 diagrams for you, and obviously the applicant is here to discuss. And he has shown us what the architect's or the contractor's rendering would look like, as well as, and I told Eric specifically, don't pay an architect or a surveyor to go out here and survey this stuff and show it,
Right.
but this should give you an approximate location, it's the U shape that would go in the middle of it. This is a public hearing, it's a straight up rezoning is the way we've advertised this. I don't think I put a conditional rezoning on this one.
I
Wanna read the
it
ad?
didn't say
It
conditional.
says, the proposed rezoning will permit the right, the development of.
Yes, it's a rezoning to business general.
From RB.
On residential business. And if you look at the map, by the color coding, it falls in 2 of these lots right here. And this little orange or burnt orange shaded area, there's not a lot of it in town, but it's called residential business. It allows single-family homes, but also allows light businesses like dentist office and things like that. I don't know if a dentist office is what Eric's talking about, and I think it's 2 different things, but because of the nature of what he's doing, and because our ordinance already identifies many warehouses being a use by right in the business general district, and because it abuts business general district, and if you're familiar with it, it lies between Brown Street and the railroad tracks. Okay, I think there was a house on it one time when you bought
Oh,
it.
Pink House.
Pink
Used to
house
be
on
there.
there. I've advertised this as a general business straight rezoning from residential business to the purple area, and the medical centers. And
Where is it again? Can you point?
here's Brown Street.
There's no man's land right between Brown
Right
Street
behind-
and the
right
railroad
behind the
track.
New Medical Center.
So,
Okay.
The turn to go around.
Oh, I got
to
you.
do it,
Yeah.
Just prior to that
Okay.
on the left
so
hand.
if you look at this one that's actually on architectural rendering, we had a contract to purchase, we had purchased this 100-foot section at a tax sale 2 years ago probably, or more. And then we had a contract on the piece between the lot that I purchased and then that house, kind of in that curve that sits up on that hill. We were at closing, been paid for, come to find out, Mr. Levere, who has spoken with Philip and was all for rezoning this, and that's why this was drawn, was for Mr. Levere's property to be included. But there's tons of errors and nobody can be found. And so it's one of those properties where we're like, all right, well, we got a lot that's smaller, so this is actually, you really need to look at this one to show what it's gonna be, because this would be too large for that lot, the other one.
That shows you what they'll look like.
It would look just like that, correct, without the ones in the center. Because there won't be room for that.
Now, this is up to 35 units?
Correct. And I did that just because if one day, which I don't think is actually, it's not even enough room to put a single row in the middle.
Statutorily, if you would like to open a public hearing, I don't know if there's
Yes.
much to do, let's open the public hearing and you can close it very quickly.
Let us open the public hearing on the request
Really
of
just trying to find-
NEC
it's been listed
Investments.
for sale for 2 years with Southern Virginia Realty. There's been no hits whatsoever. Just trying to find a use for the piece of property.
What are the dimensions of the property?
It's 100 by 158. So you would only have 30 foot of actual building width in that 100 foot. Because they're gonna be 15 foot deep and you're gonna have two different on the sides.
10 by 15, where each of the units is up to 35, 10 by 15 storage units.
Yep. And the reason I lay it out like I do, in the town of Blackstone, I believe, Philip, correct me if I'm wrong, I think you have to have, your facility must be fenced in.
Correct.
And I'm not a
With
big
a
fence
gate.
person, I don't think it looks as aesthetically appealing. So your building actually acts as your fence, except for on the front part, you do have to have a fence.
It has to be gated. If you noticed over there on Broad Street,
Yeah, it would have
Get
to
a-
be gated.
you've got an access gate. All mini storage warehouse by definition
Well, so,
would have limited access.
so Blackstone Self-Storage doesn't have
Because
any,
they're before, I guess,
People.
prior.
and then the storage beside Cole Construction doesn't have any of that either.
Before 1992, we can't retroactively go back and make them do it. Now, if they were to come to rezone and
Their grandfather.
demolish the building, their grandfather.
So then you're
But the new
saying
ones that were done just
that
recently, if you notice, they've got a gate
serve
now.
as no entry.
Correct.
That it will not be fenced, but it will be fenced around the
It'd be,
front.
have to be fenced in the front, and if you look at this, there'll have to be a section at the very back corners too, just to make sure that there's no entry point
Okay.
on the back corner. There's a huge drop off at the back of this lot that goes down the railroad tracks. It's probably a 15-foot drop off. This would literally go almost back to that drop off.
Is there any residents there?
Are there any
Any
residents?
residents on the
There's a
either?
brick house right at the corner of Dinwiddie Avenue when it makes that right-hand turn. I think it may be a
It's
rental house
100-foot further over.
from the property line.
Yeah.
It's Brown Street.
There were 3 houses
Brown
there when I
Street.
started working. One burned. If you remember, there was a big white house that caught on fire right behind Hardee's.
Yes.
Gone. That pink house, and then that brick house that's still there. It's
That pink house was a cinder block house, I think.
The pink one was a little cinder block house,
The
exactly.
old water and sewer stubs are still on that property from the
Okay.
house. Yeah.
Now, last time we talked about mini storage warehouses with Eric.
And I'll explain that too, if you.
Wait, you
The
can't.
reason, you know, obviously y'all approved for us to do something over at the Dewey property. Well, you've seen that I've taken a turn over there to where it's more of a philanthropic
They want you to
museum.
donate.
We're turning that building into a museum just because of the history that it holds. And so it just wouldn't fit. I wanna keep that location more of a period sensitive spot. It would look better. And again, I had actually crossed mini storage out, but then this lot up here has been non-producing when it comes to selling or, and we thought about putting a house on it as a spec and selling it, just the railroad track poses a lot of issues.
Has the
It's not desirable.
notices went out to adjoining property
Yeah,
owners?
Mr. Levere, I believe, actually contacted.
Yeah, we
Phil.
sent notices to everybody. All the adjoining property owners received a certified letter, or not a certified letter, but Jennifer sent letters and there's an affidavit that she signed that we sent them all out. I did receive a call from this Mr. Levere that owns the property, I guess it's between the brick house and your property.
Mhm.
And Mr. Levere said he didn't have any issues with it. He lives in Savannah, Georgia.
Right.
Said I'm not gonna be there, but I just wanted to make sure I understood what was going on.
So is this like a rental house for him then?
No, that's just a that's the vacant.
Just a vacant lot.
Yeah,
Between the
we have
house
a
and his-
contract.
Oh.
Mr. Levere was the one that wanted to sell it, but
Couldn't give a clear title.
it's a bunch of, it's a bunch of.
Boy, I don't see any other use for this property. And it
Pretty
looks
benign
like-
use,
It looks
yeah.
like it's
I'm just
very
trying to cover
appropriate
grass
for the
on it.
location. Any
And you're
questions?
Are you planning on graveling or paving?
Gravel.
Gravel? Okay.
Well, the entrance, because of that little incline, we're gonna have to cut that curve out a little bit wider, but just because of that incline, it would have to be paved up to a certain point. Yeah.
Now, there's one other issue, and when Eric came to us previously, and I want to make sure everybody's clear, and in your packet, the last page in your packet, Comes directly from our zoning ordinance. And Mr. Watkins asked me, when the rezoning was done for the, mini warehouse project over the Dewey property, what the setback was. And I told him, oh, in the BG, the setback is 0, you can build with the property line. That wasn't correct. You gotta look at this chart that you have here for abutting uses when it abuts residential, okay? However, so you know, RB is excluded. It has a setback for the RS, R1, R2, and R3 districts, but does not have a setback off the RB district line, okay?
And I would be even in favor of if we even went back to that previous rezoning or whatever we did up there, it was condition, whatever, it was rezoning to commercial, but with the condition that it would only sort of remove that and not.
It was R1.
I will never put those there because of that reason, of what we've turned to a different page, and we'll go with that.
But I want you to be aware that the setback technically is no setback. Okay, because RB is not referenced in here, and we can't create, and even if it were commercial, there's still no setback.
So theoretically, the individual who owns the lot, who can't get a clear title to sell it, but let's assume he wanted to gamble and built a house on the lot. What would be the setback from the house to his line?
I have my ordinance with me, but most,
If it's a 50-foot lot.
if it's a 100-foot
I
lot,
think it's 100 foot.
then you'd have to have 15-foot setback on the residential. I can go get my ordinance to tell
So-
you exactly.
As you show on mine, I'm saying that I would stay 5 foot off, just because I feel like it's cleaner.
Let me get my zoning book. and
No,
I'll tell
you
exactly.
don't
Is
need
that
to.
the case is that the case since he's in residential business, or is there no?
That's what I'm gonna go check. I knew the R2, which is 75% of town, would be 15%. Let me see what it would be in the RB district. if it's any different.
Thanks for clarifying that.
Yes.
Exactly what I was thinking.
I know sometimes he puts words in your mouth. And we are recording.
It's fine.
And Mr. Levere was anxious as he could be to sell that lot. And he has a step half sister or something that lived elsewhere and no one could get in touch with her, and I don't believe she intended to try to sell it.
That's gonna take a partition suit.
You gotta
Well,
really
what's gonna
straighten
happen
that
is
out.
eventually somebody, in my opinion, will probably just say, I'm not gonna pay taxes on it, and it'll go up for tax sale. then.
My experience with writing insurance in Nottaway County, there's a lot of property that falls in that category.
Hold up.
This guy, you say his name is Levere.
Mr. Anthony Levere.
Lives in Georgia.
I know,
Or he was in Georgia when he called me, and it came up Savannah, Georgia.
I know.
Kelly Cheney found him for me, and she's the one that worked the deal, and we were at closing. Ken had taken a check for closing, and he said, hold on, we got
Do
issues.
you want these? They're not as bad as some of the others I have.
Looks like Harry Carey now.
That's even better. I was calling her Elton John.
Holy cow!
Single-family, two-family homes in the RB district shall comply with yard regs as specified in R2. So it'd be 15% of the frontage. If it's 100 feet, you have to be 15 feet off the side. And I bring that to your attention because we dealt with it last time, and I told you incorrectly. I said, no, BG district,
Sorry.
but it's adjoining residential, but RB is not addressed. RS, R1, R2, and R3 are addressed, and RB is simply left out.
So Eric could build these up to the property
I
line,
think so, yeah.
But
I don't
Mr.
see
Le-
anything here that
but
prevents that.
Mr. Levere would have to be 15%
15%
off.
with a house, if it's 100
I
foot.
don't like going up to a property line, there's too much,
You can go less.
yeah.
You can go less.
So you get
The
the
likelihood of a residence ever being built there is extraordinary.
How you build on
at
a
this
property you
point.
don't have title to.
Yeah, and the location, the
You know,
nature.
somebody quit paying taxes, it could get sold and.
Yeah.
you know.
That's what happened with this lot, that we got.
Okay, Mel.
All right.
Question?
No questions? Okay. And there's no one else present, so we'll close the public hearing. Any discussion?
So the one resident that responded said, fine with
It's
them.
not a resident, he just owns a vacant lot next
Okay,
door. I didn't
okay.
receive anything, and I have to check the list to see, because it's adjoining property owners, and I have to confirm whether the brick house received one, but anybody that abuts, even at a perpendicular or across the street, you still have to include them. The only call I got back was from Anthony Levere, who lives in Savannah, Georgia. He called me one day last week, and
Do you want me to go get the list?
if you don't mind, that'd be great.
Sorry, I forgot to bring the folder.
And,
Sorry, Mr.
but he was the only one that, and when in doubt, I usually send a letter. Now, it doesn't really touch, but it's close, and for this purpose, I just go ahead and send a letter most times. But I'll check to see if that brick house owner got one. Okay. And, do you have any questions of any kind further?
Seems pretty straightforward,
How far is Circle Sales from?
He's got
Like-
Mr. Levere's lot.
That's on the other side of that house that they were talking about, the brick house.
Yeah, it's another
Like-
3 properties up
Okay.
or down, whichever way.
like 100 yards.
I'd say it's
I'd
probably
say it's at least 100 yards, yeah. It's a stretch now, too. And those are, some of those, I can't say they're distressed lots, but I think the property owners are hard to get a hold of.
Yeah, because I think Mr. Osborne actually doesn't even own those vacant lots, but he maintains them just to keep
Put the
it
grass.
nice.
Right.
Okay, I'm very sorry. Lena Johnson, I believe, she was on there,
Was that the house?
I believe, 211.
So it's got an address to it, okay. We sent one
She was like
to Rose and Jesse Bland.
Yeah.
Is that the house that burned down?
They're the ones that the house burned down.
House burned down.
Correct.
Anthony Levere, Savannah, Georgia. A letter was sent to Legacy Commercial Properties, and that may be Hardee's.
Must be.
I think it's Hardee's.
I think that is hard.
Vincenza and Eugenio Amato, which is brothers.
Mhm.
Sent to him. Lena Johnson, 211 Brown Street. So I take it back. I don't think it's a rental house. If the person's receiving it, then I would assume they're living there. So that's the brick house, 211 Brown. They received those.
How long ago were these sent out?
These sent out. These are dated January 20th.
They had like
10 days.
10 days to respond.
We have a statutory obligation to advertise any public hearing for planning commission or zoning, so you know, 2 times in a newspaper of general publication. We use the Courier because it's cheaper than the Richmond Dispatch, but we could do it in the Richmond Dispatch. The General Assembly does allow some digital advertising, but it still requires it to be in a local newspaper, of general circulation. So Richmond Times Dispatch or the Blackstone paper, 2 times in the newspaper in consecutive weeks with at least 5 days from the last date of publication to the public hearing. Okay. Now, these letters, we send them out, we usually try to get them out approximately at the time where the first advertisement goes in, but it doesn't say how quickly, it just says you gotta send a letter, certified, or that the clerk is certified, or the zoning administrator is certified they were sent out. Norfolk Southern Railroad got one. NEC Investments, obviously. We send one to the county, so everybody knows. State law does say if you're within a mile of another jurisdiction, that you need to send them public notice as well. And because literally everything in Blackstone is within a mile of the county limits, we send one to the county as a courtesy. Ronnie Rourke used to call me, "What the hell is that?" So, needless to say, as a matter of practice, we send one to Nottaway County, but Ted Costner was with us.
Any other questions? Anybody have a motion to make?
I'll make a motion that we go ahead and change this to BG as requested.
Is there a second?
I second it.
Okay, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Mr. Nash, I
I'm
presume
abstaining.
you were abstaining.
I'm abstaining too.
Okay.
302. As far as development and projects and things that are going on, do you have any questions? I know Jennifer cringes when I bring this kind of stuff up because it makes her sit here longer, but do you have any questions of what you're seeing in town, projects, or any of that kind of stuff? Development, anything?
Can we end the record?
Are you adjourning? Would you like to adjourn?
You can ask publicly.
Okay, all right. Yeah. Well, what do you know that's noteworthy?
Well, you read in the newspaper that the town has some interest in purchasing or working on or finding a solution to the Dillard Crawley building. And Dillard Crawley building is not in good condition. We have a fire marshal's report that is not a glowing recommendation about the building. There is, and what spurred it on is two things. One, there was a contract from a private buyer to buy the building, and that contract has not gone through. She had a study period and all that sort of thing. We honored that, didn't press. We have declared the building blighted based on the windows falling out of the damn thing in the back. We have not received any notice from the property owner that they have any intention of fixing the windows or taking care of any of the problems. We did contact the realtor. He let us into the building. We brought an appraiser there, and we reviewed the building. Second reason why we're interested in potentially doing something now is that the state has a program now that's specific to that kind of building. A distressed building in your downtown, and if you're a Main Street community, which we are, we would be eligible. For the first time ever, the state is offering something called a mixed use on Main Street program. And a mixed use on Main Street program is, they have $2.5 million budgeted by the Department of Housing and Community Development, which is under a particular secretariat. And that $2.5 million, they're gonna accept up to 5 applications if they're all $500,000, none to exceed $500,000. And it's our expectation that we're gonna try to make a bona fide offer to this fellow and say, if we get this grant money, would you accept this? And have an appraisal presented. If you accepted it, use what residue there may be in that grant to stabilize, put a new roof on it, get the fire sprinkler system working. I don't have an expectation this gentleman is going to take on that big of a cost. And we're talking, we got our initial estimate today to stabilize the building. That's not getting the AC working or the electrical system working. That's just roof, fire sprinkler, and repair rock. Okay, where we have beams and things like that, would be about $300,000. That was the initial estimate.
Does that connect to Tommy's building?
Next door.
Yeah, can we adjourn the meeting?
Okay. We have a motion to
All right.
adjourn the meeting.
It is 6:22. We can just adjourn at 6:22 if you would like.
All right.
That building's an L shape because it fronts on Main Street. It also fronts on,
Broad?
Broad Street.
The back part.
Yes, ma'am.
Can we continue to